Hello and welcome to Creative Sparkle. My name's Holly and today we're doing an art journal prompt list. So grab your art supplies and let's get crafting. Thank you for joining me today. So to begin with, we'll start with the first prompt, which is to mix a paint or pigment with your gesso and prime your page. So I've chosen this burnt umber colour and I've mixed it with white gesso to get this brown, and I'm just going to add some masking tape to the middle of the page just so that it doesn't seep through, and then continue priming the background with that colour. If you have a preferred medium that's not acrylic paint like I've used, you can use powder pigment if that's what you prefer. Anything that you think will add to the pigment, for example gelatos, you can add that to gesso to prime your page as you wish. So for the second prompt, we're going to use parts of magazine and add strips to the background. So I've chosen this science magazine that I have handy, and I'm just going to tear them out and take some of the text there to add that to my background. If you don't want to use text, if you prefer to use particular images that you have from your magazine, or if you don't have a magazine and you want to use book pages, use whatever you have available to you. So I'm tearing small and large strips of the background and I'm going to stick them all down with Mod Podge. So once we have all this stuck down and we'll just trim the edges, we will move on to prompt number 3, which is to cover the magazine fragments with a thin layer of watered down paint. So I've chosen this colour with the same Nuvo paint, and I'm just watering it down and adding that all over the page just so that we've got that tint on those magazine pieces and also over the page as well. So once we've finished with that part and let it all dry, we'll move on to prompt number 4, which is to add shadows and highlights to the magazine pieces or outline them. So I've chosen this bronze paint that I have and I'm just going to water it down to add some shimmer to all of those magazine pieces. If you prefer, you can add some highlights here and there, do some shadows, whatever you feel goes with your page best. So I'm going to go over each and every one of those magazine pieces, and I'm also going to take the same paint and do an outline on each of them as well, so that they have a more bold and metallic outline, and you'll see in a moment when I start to do that it just adds some emphasis to each one of those magazine pieces with the outline. Obviously, if you would prefer to use a pen to outline them and add your highlights and shadows, you can do that. There's no need to try and find the same thing that I'm using. I just thought that the brown went quite well with the bronze, so I wanted to use that to emphasize them. So once that step is complete, we'll move on to prompt number 5, which is to use dried flowers or plants within your project. I've chosen some of these skeleton dried leaves and I'm going to be adding them randomly over the page to kind of make a border around it, and I'm just going to stick them down with some PVA glue. I had originally planned to use some pressed flowers that I had, but unfortunately when I went to go and check on them after the weeks of them being dried, unfortunately they hadn't come out well, so I opted for this. It was just something I had in my stash and thought it went quite well with the prompt, fortunately. So once we've got this stuck down, we'll move on to prompt number 6, which is to take or choose a photograph of yourself or a loved one to use as your focal image. The image that I've chosen is of my late dog Sassy, and I've chosen her because the colours just reminded me of her, to be honest, and I thought it was very apt. So I chose a cute little image of her doing a little mlem with her tongue, and I'm just going to cut that out and use the image as is. So I haven't stuck her down yet because prompt number 7 is to frame your photograph with a medium of your choice. So I've chosen to use the same idea of the background with the magazine pieces. So I'm going to take some magazine pieces and shred them like I had with the background and add them to a piece of paper. And once that's done, I'll add the same bronze and brown mixture that I had in the magazine pieces in the background, and paint that over the magazine pieces. And then once that's all dried and we have the shimmer there, I'm going to use my Scan and Cut to cut out a shape for the frame. And once I have the shape, I will add more of the bronze paint to outline the frame so that we have more of that shimmer to add it to the page with a consistency of having everything cohesive. So I'm going to use that walnut brown and the bronze together, water it down for the background so we can still see those magazine clips through. If you don't want to make a frame like this, or if you want to use just paint, or you could use embossing powder, whatever you think goes with your image better. I'm doing this because that's just how I felt the page would be more cohesive, and I thought it went quite well. So once all of that shimmer paint has been added, I wanted to protect the photo, so I just got a piece of acetate and stuck it to the back side of the frame, just so that it were protected from anything that might spill on it or stick on it from the page when the book's closed. So I'll just get that stuck down, and then we will add the photo and add it to the page. I'm going to use some foam tape to add it to the page, just so it comes out from the page a bit more, and we've got a 3D element on the page there as well. So once that prompt is finished and you have your photo stuck down with the frame, we'll move on to prompt number 8, which is to choose a word that the photo makes you think of for the title. So I've chosen the word sassy because that's the name of the dog. You can choose to do the title with the name of the person or something that makes you think of, whatever you feel is best for your page. And I've chosen this word out of black paper. I've cut it on the Scan and Cut, and I've cut with the same style on plain paper and used that bronze paint again, so I have 2 layers, and that black will just add a shadow from behind, and I think it brings it page together a bit more because the dog image has some black on there and we don't have that on the rest of the page, so I thought I would add that in and it would bring back that cohesion a bit more. So moving on to the next prompt, which is prompt number 9, is add a border to the page using the corners only. So I chose to just do 2 of the corners rather than all 4, and I've chosen these little frames, and I'm just going to use one of them in the bottom right and the top left, and I'm going to use this jet black archival ink so that it will, again with the cohesion, the black adding to the page as well. So once we have that frame done and it's dried, we'll move on to the final prompt, which is prompt number 10, add a small envelope to your layout. So again, I've chosen to use a black envelope, and I'm using that bronze paint to go around the edges, and this will just bring the page together nicely. And I will go around each of the edges so that we have a bronze outline, and then I'm also going to add a wax seal to my envelope, and then I'll glue it down with PVA glue once it's finished. If you wanted to add a different kind of envelope, something that you already have, or create an envelope from patterned paper, you can choose whichever medium you wish to add your envelope. You could even draw one on if you don't have one available to you. Whatever you feel like goes with your page best, and hopefully I will see your creations. So if you do decide to do the prompts, please do tag me on Instagram with the hashtag #SparklePrompts. The full list will be at the end of the video, and I will see you next time where we will turn your creative spark into a creative sparkle. Bye!